Mr. Chairman, with permission, can I have a follow-up questions? I don't know if anyone else is, but I'm happy to direct that if I know you have to go.
Oh, Senator Manchin, did you want to? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Senator. I'll go after Senator Ayotte. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to ask about this. First of all, let me just make the point. As you look at the Taliban 5, I just think the point needs to be made very clearly. They were top commanders in the Taliban. I read you the quote about what one of the commanders on the ground said in Helmand province about it's like pouring 10,000 jihadists back into the fight. So you can't say that they weren't directly involved. So because they themselves only issued the commands to kill Americans and didn't kill the Americans themselves, the leaders are often more important than the foot soldiers asked to carry this out. And so I don't understand the argument made from, with all respect to my colleague from Virginia, but these were, the American people need to understand, these were top Taliban leaders who themselves made many orders that would be involved in killing us and our allies in Afghanistan. I would like to ask Admiral Myers, we had General Mattis before the committee the other day, former commander of CENTCOM, I'm sure you know the general. And one thing he said when he talked about our detention policy, and he said that he did not understand, he was perplexed by our lack of detention policy. And in fact, when I asked him about it, he said that, ma'am, first and foremost, I believe this, we go into a fight, we've not seen certain of ourselves enough to hold prisoners. The people who we've taken in the fight, for example, in 1944, did we take Rommel's troops who were in POW camps in Texas and let them go back and get another shot at us at Normandy? We kept them until the war was over. We didn't start this war, and if an enemy wants to fight or be a truck driver, we didn't say to his radio operators could be released because they didn't have a significant role. If you sign up with the enemy, they should know we're coming after you. If the president, the commander-in-chief, sends us out there, and if you're taken prisoner, you'll be prisoner until the war is over. I mean, this is pretty much war fighting 301 or advanced war fight. This is not advanced war fighting, not war fighting 301 or advanced warfare. This is kind of 101, ma'am. And my biggest concern I have been, having been in the infantry for years, is if our troops find that they are taking someone prisoner a second time, they will just, and they have just scraped one of their buddies off the pavement and zipped him into a bag, the potential for maintaining the ethical imperative we expect of our armed forces is going to be undercut if, in fact, the integrity of our war effort does not take these people off the battlefield permanently if taken prisoner. In other words, they will take things into their own hands and under the pressures of warfare. Admiral, do you share General Mattis's concerns? If we've captured someone on the battlefield and then our men and women in uniform encounter them again after having seen, obviously, their brothers and sisters in arms killed by this enemy, don't you think that's a real concern and that our men and women in uniform should never be forced to confront someone that we had previously captured?
Well, Senator, I do have the utmost respect for General Mattis. I do not believe that the current policy, which I cannot necessarily speak to the policy, but I do not believe the morale of the men and women of the armed forces on the combat field have any impact, whether it's the same person the first time, second time, whatever. A combatant is a combatant. I do not believe it is impacting the morale as far as those actually engaging in combat operations.
Okay, but let me ask you this. If we captured someone in battle, do you think our men and women in uniform should ever have to confront them again? Yes or no? We had them. We had them captured. We had them incarcerated. We released them. Do you believe they should ever have to confront them again?
I do not believe anyone should ever have to confront them. However, as you have seen through history, through various reasons, that's not always the case, and people have re-entered the battlefield through the history of time.
Well, they're going to re-enter the battlefield when they're being transferred to third-party countries where they're not even being incarcerated again and where there are very few conditions on their confinement, if any. And I think this is something that is atrocious, that one of our men and women in uniform, or any of our allies, or anyone working with us, should ever be forced. When we had someone captured as a prisoner of war, we had them taken from the battlefield, that they would ever confront them again. It seems to me that is one of the fundamental problems we face here. And the other question I would like to ask Secretary McKeon, if we get Ayman al-Zawahiri tomorrow, the head of al-Qaeda, or al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, what will we do with them? Where will we put them? I understand what my colleague from Virginia said about Article 3 courts. Will they be told they have a right to remain silent? Will they be Mirandized? Or will we interrogate them and find out what they're planning in terms of killing us and our allies?
Senator Ayotte, our policy, if we detain new people on the battlefield, is to examine them and follow a case-by-case basis, depending on all the circumstances. We would certainly interrogate them. If we had an Article 3 case that we could build against them, we would pursue that.
So I guess where would you put al-Baghdadi? Where would you put Ayman al-Zawahiri? Do you know the answer to that, Secretary McKeon? Do you know where we would put them?
In the first instance, we would interrogate them.
Where would
either
you interrogate them?
In situ, where we pick them up.
Okay, but after that?
Or we could do it in another place. We've done it with Mr. Warsame on a U.S. ship.
Right. So ship, and you can only keep someone on a ship for so long because it's temporary. When we get the leaders of these terrorist groups, this is the problem. I've been asking since I got in this Senate, and I've been asking top levels of this administration for years, if we catch the head of al-Qaeda tomorrow, what do we do with them? And you know what I've heard time and time and again? We're working on our detention policy. We'll get back to you. It's been years. And what worries me is, as we sit here, to the chairman's point, so many questions remain unanswered, including having Baghdadi or Zawahiri on a ship for a temporary basis is not long enough to interrogate them to find out what they know about al-Qaeda, about ISIS, to protect Americans. And there seems to be no plan for that.
Senator, if we were to get one of these people that you mentioned, and we could build an Article 3 case, we would ultimately bring him to the United States for prosecution, probably in New York or Virginia, where these kinds of national security cases are usually prosecuted. If we can't build an Article 3 case, we would look at whether we could prosecute them through the military commission's process. We would look at all options, but we would certainly interrogate them for some time before we put them into any prosecution lane.
Well, except you know, of course, once they go into an Article 3 court, they're entitled to Miranda. They're told they have the right to remain silent. They're entitled to rights to speedy trial. And so we, at that point, aren't going to get a chance to fully interrogate someone.
Well, but Senator, we would do the interrogation at the front end with an interrogation team, and then if there was an option for federal court prosecution, we would bring in a separate FBI team that had not been what we call a clean team, that had not been privy to the prior military or IC interrogation, to then build the case. So it would be a separate interrogation, and we would be able to get the intelligence value.
How long would you hold?
Which we did in the case of Mr. Warsame. We did it in the case of Mr. al-Libi.
And in both of al-Libi and Warsame situations, you held them for, I would say, far too insufficient of a time, because you had them on ships, because this administration is so adverse to putting anyone in Guantanamo. They'd rather hold someone who's a terrorist on a temporary basis on a ship rather than make sure that we can have the opportunity for a lengthy interrogation. As you know, sometimes it takes a long time to gather all the information that someone like the head of al-Qaeda or the head of ISIS would know.
Senator,
Go ahead, please answer.
yes. Senator, I don't think there's been any pressure on the intelligence professionals who do these interrogations to speed it up. And I believe, although I would double check this for the record, that even after he went into the federal court system, Mr. Warsame gave us quite a bit of information. Federal prosecutors have quite a lot of tools in terms of encouraging cooperation as they bring a case. So we are not without tools to get the proper information.
So,
The senator's time really has expired. Senator Sessions, and if you'll close it down, Senator Sessions. Thank you.